Hi friends, today we are going to talk about folk art and the definition of a folk artist. Now, when we think of art, we often think of very famous artists such as Picasso, Leonardo da Vinci, he's the man who painted the Mona Lisa, and Vincent van Gogh, the artist we just studied who painted the Starry Night. Now, folk artists are a little bit different in that they did not get trained or go to an art school to learn how to draw or paint, where many of the famous artists we know studied for many, many years to learn how to draw and paint very realistically. Folk artists often can't afford to go to art school because they have to work. Like this artist here, this folk artist, looks like he or she lived on a farm. They probably had to tend the farm, but they loved to draw or paint. So they did a painting that represented where they lived and the animals that they took care of. But it doesn't have the kind of 3D shadows and the proportion, that means the scale of things, to make it look super realistic. Although it's still done very, very well, the artist just didn't have that special training to do the 3D shadows and effects. Folk art is very, very valuable. It's just as valuable as, say, the artwork of very famous artists that we know, because it often reflects things about their life and their culture and things that are very, very important to him or her. So looking at these two examples, which one would be an example of folk art and which one would not? Well, from what we talked about, folk artists are not trained, so they don't learn how to do things such as 3D shadowing and effects that make paintings look very, very realistic and representational. So the painting on the right is done by a folk artist by the name of Heather Galler, and we're going to study about her today. And the painting on the left is a portrait done by Leonardo da Vinci, and maybe you recognize it. It's probably the most famous portrait in the world, and it's called the Mona Lisa. And Leonardo da Vinci learned how to paint, as you see, very realistically, learning about light and shadow. Now, Heather Galler did not go to art school and train to learn those kind of things about making art. However, her paintings are just as interesting, and the colors are very, very bright. She uses lots and lots of different patterns and colors, and I think her paintings show a lot of feeling and emotion and joy. I think the colors she uses are very, very happy. So Heather Galler is a folk artist who lives in New York, and she's been making art for over 23 years. She has painted large-scale murals, which are very, very large paintings in restaurants, office buildings, and private homes. And many art collectors have owned over 30 of her paintings in their art collections. Here is a photograph of Heather Galler, and she is a mom. She has a 5-year-old son, and she owns 4 dogs. So as you see here, this is another painting she did. It looks like a dachshund that has very, very bright colors and patterns. Here's another painting she did of an elephant. You can see that her style reflects pattern and bright colors. And as I said, to me, the colors and patterns she uses are very, very joyful and whimsical. So what can you tell about Heather Galler from the types of things that she paints? Well, she's an animal lover. She saw the picture of dogs that she did of a dog. Here's some more cats. This is of nature. You could see this a landscape she did. Looks like different types of gardens using different kind of colors and patterns. This is a portrait she did of an angel with a bird. And this looks like a vase of very, very bright, colorful flowers. So I said she did not go to art school, but she still has a wonderful way of painting things. They're not realistic. I said they're more flat because she uses lots and lots of flat shapes and patterns. Which again, that's not a bad thing. It's just different than from say an artist that paints very, very realistically. And what do you notice about her landscapes? Well, lots and lots of layers of patterns and colors. She kind of fills her paintings with many, many different varieties of shapes within the landscape. Different types of flowers, sizes, and shapes overlap to create these beautiful, wonderful patterns. And here are two more of her paintings of trees. So not only does she use pattern within the trees, kind of looks like lollipops, don't they? Then she uses layers of pattern in the background. And here's that bird. It seems like she adds a little tiny bird to many of her paintings. I saw them in a couple other paintings we talked about as well. And then she does customized animal portraits, and that if you send in a photograph of your pet, so these are two cats, that she actually did her kind of style, which is the colors and patterns. So she'll take a picture of your pet and do it and repaint it in her style, which I think is very, very, I would love to get my two dogs, Iggy and Jack Jack, have their portrait painted by Heather Galler to have these beautiful, bright patterns and colors for their portraits. I think that's pretty cool. So we are going to focus on a series of paintings she did where she did cups of hot cocoa using lots of different lines and patterns within the cups itself, the cocoa cups, as well as it looks like wallpaper in the background, the tablecloth, and you know what this is called underneath the cup, the round is called an ellipse shape. That's called a saucer, which she also looks like does many, many different kinds of varieties of patterns and colors. And here's a close-up of some more of those cups of hot cocoa. I thought since we are in the month of December and in the holiday season, I think it would be great to do a steaming hot cup of hot cocoa done in the style of Heather Galler using many, many bright patterns and colors.